The corridor outside the ward smelled of disinfectant and burnt coffee. My name is Rachel Carter. I'm 29 years old, an Army nurse who has patched up strangers on foreign soil but hasn't been welcomed at her own family's table in years. The night my phone buzzed, I was sitting under the harsh hum of fluorescent lights trying to stretch the last sip of vending machine espresso into comfort. The message glowed against the dark screen, short enough to fit in one breath. Christmas will be better without you. Don't come. It was from my father. At first, I thought I had misread it, the way you sometimes confuse vital signs when you're running on fumes. I blinked, waited for the dots of a correction to appear. None came. Just silence as sterile as the hallway around me. A second ping arrived before I found air to exhale. This time it was my brother Ethan, younger by 8 years, but fluent in the family language of dismissal. Please don't show up. You'll only make it worse. The words landed sharper than I wanted to admit. My knuckles tightened around the phone until the plastic creaked. I had crossed oceans, kept night watches intense that rattled with wind-stitched men back together under red lights, and yet a pair of text messages could cut deeper than shrapnel. I typed a single reply, noted, no explanation, no plea, just one word that felt like both surrender and declaration. When the ward settled again, I slipped into the break room and stared at the snow outside the narrow window. Germany's December flurries didn't bother to cover the ground. They only reminded you how cold the air already was. I unlocked my banking app, the one that tethered me to a home that didn't want me. Row after row of automatic payments blinked on utilities, insurance, mortgage support. For 3 years, those switches had stayed obediently, lit money marching out of my account without thanks or even acknowledgement. My finger hovered over the first toggle, off. Then the next, off. Each click sounded louder than the last, like gunfire on a training range. By the time I finished, my chest felt strangely clear. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was release. A line that had been stretched thin for a decade finally slackened. I still had a ticket home, non-refundable, folded in my wallet like a dare. I didn't cancel it. I didn't text again. I only sat with the silence, the kind that hums inside your ears when you realize there's nothing left to prove. 48 hours later, while snow thickened over the runways and the city below prepared its holiday lights, my phone began to vibrate with missed calls, my father, my brother numbers I didn't recognize. One of them left a voicemail that began with the words, "Miss Carter, this is counsel for your parents." That was how Christmas began for me. Not with carols, not with family, but with rejection carved into a screen, and the sudden knowledge that I had finally irrevocably stopped paying for the privilege of being unwanted. The airport at dawn looked like a lung holding its breath, windows gray with condensation, passengers moving as though the day hadn't quite begun. I moved with them, ticket folded tight in my pocket, each step heavier than the last. The phone in my hand vibrated again and again, Dad, Ethan, an unknown number, then silence. I didn't answer. Not after the message that told me Christmas would be better without you. The taxi driver asked where I was headed. I gave him the address of a roadside motel I half remembered from high school, a place we used to pass on the way to better towns. The city thinned into warehouses and shuttered strip malls, the radio filling the silence with a carol too cheerful to be real. My reflection in the window looked older than I felt, jaw set hard against everything I couldn't stop replaying. The motel's sign flickered, 2 bulbs burned out. Inside, the smell was equal parts bleach and stale smoke. I checked in keycard, sliding across the counter from a clerk who didn't care who I was, which was oddly comforting. My room sighed when I dropped my duffel on the chair. The mattress sagged as though it had been carrying too many secrets. On the nightstand, my phone glared with voicemail icons. I pressed play. My father's gravel voice accused me of betrayal, loyalty twisted into obligation. A lawyer's smooth baritone spoke of amicable resolutions. Timelines, further fallout. Ethan's text was blunt as ever, grow up. Not one of them asked if I had landed safe, or if I had eaten, or if I was all right. The words pulled me backward into memories I tried not to revisit. 16 standing behind the counter at the gas station, rolling quarters for a used car I dreamed might take me away. The envelope of cash vanished to fix a leak in the roof that never got fixed, but somehow covered Ethan's birthday party with a rented DJ. 19 signing enlistment papers because I wanted rules that weren't negotiable. Later sitting in overseas barracks, wiring money into accounts that drained faster than my pay could fill them. Every transfer answered by silence except when they needed more. Now, I sat in the motel's half-light, and instead of sending, I gathered screenshots of mortgage transfers, insurance statements, confirmation numbers. Each image felt like a stitch closing a wound. I wasn't angry. I was steady. For once, the record existed outside of me, and the truth was mine to hold. The snow outside had thickened a fine white film, softening the ugliness of the parking lot. I walked to the lobby, took the coffee the clerk handed me, without question, and sat in the corner where the television played a holiday movie loud enough to drown out thought. A child on screen unwrapped presents. The audience laughed. I only tasted the bitterness of burnt coffee. When I returned to my room, another message waited. Mom this time. We're all under a lot. That was it. No love you, no attempt at comfort. Just 5 words that excused everything and explained nothing. I stared at it until my eyes blurred, then set the phone face down on the table. The heater rattled itself awake, filling the room with a mechanical heartbeat. I lay back on the bed and let the noise wash over me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't waiting for their apology or their excuses. I wasn't waiting for anything from them at all. What I was waiting for, maybe for the first time in my life, was to see who I could be without the weight of them pulling me down. By the time the sun finally rose pale and reluctant, the motel walls already felt too close. I dressed, pulled my jacket tight, and walked until the cold stung me awake. The strip mall across the highway was waking up 2 store lights flicking on in reluctant sequence. A hardware shop rolled its shutter open. A teenager in a puffer coat set out a sandwich board for a nail salon. The ordinariness of it all made the chaos in my phone feel unreal, like maybe I had dreamed it. But then I unlocked the screen, and reality arrived in rows of notifications. There were more missed calls, more messages stacked on top of each other, each one insisting urgency, each one making it clear that the only thing they cared about had $signs attached. My father's voicemail accused me of betrayal of abandoning family. He said the word loyalty as if it had ever been a two-way street. My mother's text was shorter. Your dad isn't well. You need to stop this. Ethan's contribution read like a dare. You've made your point. Grow up. I sat on a bench outside the grocery store with a cup of burnt coffee in my hands and felt the old reflex kick in, the one that always made me cave. They knew how to play it. Sickness, guilt, appeals to duty. It was the same playbook they had used for years. Every time a bill loomed or a car broke down, I was the safety net. I thought of the nights I had sat on my bunk overseas wiring money, while the rest of the unit laughed at a movie streaming from someone's hard drive. I thought of Ethan's second car accident, the deductible. I covered the new SUV he drove a month later, while posting about how hard work pays off. Back then, I told myself it didn't matter if I got credit. I told myself family wasn't about thanks. But sitting in the chill of an Ohio parking lot, sipping coffee that tasted like cardboard, I admitted something I had avoided for years. Maybe it did matter. Not the money itself, but the erasure. The way they could take and still speak as if I had given nothing. By noon, the motel clerk waved me over and said the front desk had been ringing nonstop with calls for me. You a local celebrity? She asked with a grin. I smiled back without explaining. It was easier than telling her the truth, that I was famous only to people who wanted to wring me dry. Back in the room, I opened the album of receipts I'd built. Line after line of evidence glowed against the screen: mortgage transfers, insurance payments, electricity bills, all anchored with dates that lined up perfectly with their pleas for help. For years, I had told myself not to keep score. But keeping score turned out to be survival. Without it, they could rewrite the narrative until even I doubted what I had carried. That evening, I stopped doubting. I pressed select, all added a caption that read, "Sometimes family is just a word people use when they mean bank," and hit post. My thumb shook for a second, then steadied. The upload bar filled, turned blue, and the truth was loose in the world. The reaction was immediate. A cousin I hadn't heard from in years texted Rachel, "Is this real? I had no idea." An aunt messaged, "Honey, you've been carrying this alone." By the time I scrolled through the comments, my mother's Facebook profile had vanished, and my father's picture changed to one of him fishing, as if a photo could wash away the evidence. Ethan posted something cryptic about people who live for drama, which only confirmed what I already knew: he cared more about appearances than accountability. Hours later, my father's voice filled another voicemail, this one heavy with outrage. He accused me of humiliating them. He said I'd forgotten who fed me when I was little. The words landed like stones thrown from a safe distance. I thought about the nights I ate cereal alone at the counter while everyone else doted on Ethan. I thought about the birthday cakes with my name misspelled, the "just figure it out" lectures, the way silence was their favorite punishment. Forgetting wasn't the problem. Remembering was. Outside, the snow picked up again, powder drifting under the yellow glare of the parking lot lamps. I wrapped myself in the motel's thin blanket and listened to the heater cough. My phone buzzed one last time, this time from an unfamiliar number. The voicemail began politely, too politely. "Miss Carter, this is counsel for your parents. They'd like to meet in person. Emotions are high, but we believe a calm discussion could resolve this." I almost laughed. Resolve. What years of manipulation. A decade of financial dependency disguised as love. Still, part of me knew the confrontation was inevitable. If not now, then later. And I was tired of later. So I texted back. "Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Clark's Diner off Route 11. Booth in the back." A neutral ground public with fluorescent lights that made shouting look cheap. When I put the phone down, I felt an unexpected stillness. Not triumph, not dread, just the steadiness of a plan. The diner was small, the kind of place where truckers ordered pie and nobody pretended the coffee was good. It was also a place with wide windows and exits on both sides, which meant I could see what was coming. I had learned long ago to choose my ground carefully. I closed the curtains, set the alarm for morning, and lay down. For the first time in years, I felt like I might sleep without waiting for a crisis to drag me awake. Tomorrow, the reckoning would arrive. And this time, I would meet it on my terms. Clark's Diner sat just off Route 11, a squat brick building with windows fogged from years of coffee steam. I arrived 10 minutes early because that's what discipline does. It keeps you on time even when your heart doesn't want to show up. The waitress behind the counter nodded toward the booths in the back. I slid into one where I could see the door, the side exit, and the reflection of the room in the front glass. Old training dies hard. The place smelled of frying oil and lemon cleaner. A jukebox in the corner hummed, though no one had fed it quarters. I ordered coffee, no food. My stomach was a fist I couldn't unclench. The waitress refilled the cup without asking, like she knew the night was going to need more than one. At exactly 6:03, the bell above the door rang, and there they were. My father walked, first stiff jacket, zipped high, jaw locked. My mother clutched her purse like it might slip away. Ethan trailed behind in a hoodie, sunglasses still on, though the sky outside was more slate than sun. They scanned the room, spotted me, and slid into the booth opposite. No hugs, no greetings, just the scraping of vinyl seats. My father spoke first. "We don't want this to get uglier than it already is." My mother's voice followed, softer, rehearsed. "We're family. We've all said things we didn't mean." Ethan tugged his hood tighter. "But posting all that online, Rach, that was low. Even for you." I leaned back, let the coffee steady me. "Even for me. Interesting take." My father's eyes narrowed. "You humiliated your mother, your brother, me." I slid the folder I'd brought across the table. It was thick, tabbed, organized with the precision of someone who has filed reports in triplicate. "No, you did that yourselves. I just stopped covering it up." My mother opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside were bank statements, receipts, insurance forms, each page a mirror they had avoided for years. She closed it quickly, as if paper could burn. My father's face flushed red. "You didn't have to cut us off. We were counting on you." That house, I interrupted, was being partly paid for by someone who wasn't welcome to step foot in it for Christmas. Let's not pretend this is about logistics. His fist hit the table, silverware rattling. We came here to fix this. But if you're going to keep playing the victim, no one's playing anything, I said, voice flat. I just stopped funding my own erasure. For a moment, silence blanketed the booth. Ethan shoved his sunglasses up, revealing red-rimmed eyes. You're cruel, doing this to your own family. Family is a two-way street, I said. I've been walking it alone for years. The bell above the diner door jingled again. I didn't have to look. The air shifted the way it does when someone walks in who refuses to be ignored. Uncle James stood tall, despite the cane in his right hand. Silver hair combed back, eyes sharp as glass. His coat looked older than me, but his presence pulled the whole room tighter. Well, he said, voice calm, measured. This is cozy. My father half rose, panic flickering across his face. James, I didn't know you were in town. You never do, James said, sliding into the booth beside me. That's your problem. He turned to me. Rachel, you holding up? I nodded, throat tight. Better now. He looked at my parents, then at Ethan. I heard about the messages, the way you spoke to her, the lawyer, the crying. Ron, you've always been good at acting. My father opened his mouth, closed it. Uncle James reached into his coat and placed a sealed envelope on the table. I updated my will 2 weeks ago. Rachel is the sole beneficiary. The house, the land, the savings, it all goes to her. The silence that followed was nuclear. My mother gasped. Ethan's mouth hung open. My father looked as though someone had driven a fist into his chest. You're cutting us out, he finally rasped. I'm cutting out the rot, James said. And no, you can't contest it. It's notarized and filed. He turned back to me, eyes softening. I should have done this sooner. I'm sorry I waited. I swallowed hard. You did it in time. James stood leaning on his cane. That's all I came to say. He walked out without dramatics, just the steady tap of his cane against the tile. I pushed the folder back across the table. Thanks for meeting. My mother blinked, desperate. Rachel, please. You made your choice, I said. This one is mine. My father's voice was low, dangerous. So you're just going to walk out after everything we did for you? I held his gaze. You didn't do anything for me. You did things to me. And now I'm done. I stood, left cash for the coffee, and walked toward the door. Behind me, their voices rose, but I didn't turn back. The bell jingled once more as I stepped into the cold night air, a sharper, cleaner sound than any apology they could have given. 2 months later, I stood in the living room of Uncle James's house, cardboard boxes stacked around me like guard towers. The air smelled of cedar and dust, of something solid and unpretending. Outside, snowmelt dripped from the eaves in steady beats, a rhythm more soothing than any words my parents had ever offered. For the first time in years, I felt a quiet that wasn't punishment. It was peace. The lawyer had handled everything cleanly. No contests, no loopholes, no surprise signatures, surfacing at the last moment. Just a transfer of ownership from a man who had seen me, really seen me, to someone who finally believed she deserved more than survival. The deed sat in a folder on the mantel, heavy with ink and finality. I unpacked slowly, like someone testing the weight of permanence. My uniforms went into the closet, my books lined up on a shelf that leaned a little to the left. On the mantel, I placed one photo, me and Uncle James on his porch, laughing at a joke I can't remember. What I do remember is the look on his face, pride without condition, affection without agenda. My phone lay dark on the counter. I had blocked the numbers weeks ago, but sometimes new ones slipped through. Begging, accusing, bargaining. The words blurred together, and I no longer felt the need to separate them. Love is not supposed to be negotiated like a loan, and peace is not something you owe anyone simply because they share your blood. I walked through each room, touching the walls, listening to the creaks and sighs of an old house that now belonged to me. The silence didn't echo with guilt or duty. It wrapped itself around me like armor, like a home. What comes next? I don't know. Maybe I'll open the spare bedroom to other veterans who need a place to land. Maybe I'll just sit in the quiet until I learn how to breathe without bracing for impact. Either way, I'm not looking back. This Christmas won't be spent waiting for a porch light that never turns on. It will be spent here in a house that carries the proof that someone once believed in me. A house that doesn't demand, doesn't guilt, doesn't manipulate. When people ask me what family means, I think of Uncle James. I think of the porch photo, the stillness, the way he looked at me like I wasn't a burden. Family isn't who drains you. Family is who shows up, who stays, who doesn't need proof every time you say you're tired. And freedom? Freedom is what happens when you finally stop paying the price for someone else's version of love. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.